Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And we're here to ask the question, the New Gods, DC's New Gods versus Marvel's The Asgardians. And this question came to us from our Patreon, patreon.com/Jawin. But the question specifically was asked by who, Ashley?
The amazing Andrew Bosco. Thank you for your question.
Yes, Andrew Bosco, who I have heard tell knows the Colonel's secret recipe. He knows all the ingredients.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you want to know, you should ask Andrew. All right. Andrew, of course, asked this question on our Patreon. If you want to answer a question, there's a link down in the description. Go to Patreon, do that. But we're going to talk about New Gods versus the Asgardians. Ashley, basically, we should talk about who the New Gods are.
Yeah.
The New Gods are, of course, these characters that were created by Jack Kirby when he moved to DC Comics in the 70s. Basically, they are creators that are represented by good and evil. There's a bunch of really cool Kirby dots all over the crazy place. And
find them on our set.
There's a bunch of them on
yeah,
there. Actually,
there's
a couple New Gods. There's one like right behind your shoulder right there. There's two of them actually. And then the Asgardians of Marvel are who?
They are taking the classic Asgardians from Norse mythology and updating them for the Marvel Comics universe. Odin, Frigga, and their various children.
But primarily based around, I'd say,
Thor and Loki,
Thor,
yes.
Portrayed by Chris Hemsworth. All right, so before we can get into this question, I have to ask a caveat right out of the gate.
Okay.
Ashley, when we're talking about the New Gods, I have always heard them, I mean, the fourth world describes their sort of journey, their sort of stories. But if we're talking about New Gods versus Asgardians, can I factor Darkseid, the great villain of the New Gods? Would he technically be a New God? He's not really one of the New Gods.
I think for the sake of this video and this discussion, I think one must.
Oh, really?
I do, yeah.
I mean, and this is going to be a very short video. The New Gods obliterate the Asgardians.
Do you not think so? Do you not think they should count?
I don't know. See, I'm going to say that I think maybe Darkseid should not count in this argument because he's from Apocalypse. He's not from New Genesis, which is the home of the New Gods.
I just think because when people say the New Gods, what they actually mean is the fourth world. I think they generally mean the whole universe. I mean, this, Andrew was smart and he left us an open-ended question where we can discuss however we want.
Yeah.
Versus doesn't always necessarily mean a fight.
No.
I think in a fight, I do think the New Gods obliterate the Asgardians.
So I'm
like in a blow, hand-to-hand combat,
100%.
axe to axe, whatever.
I think without fail, with Darkseid himself could obliterate every one of them.
Yeah.
They don't even, you don't need Highfather, you don't need Orion, you don't need anything. Take Darkseid out of the argument. I think Highfather is one of the basically superpowered cosmic Jesus.
Well, and let's not forget Barda.
And then also Orion with this cool like space jacket. I think they take them down, with the exception of Thor. I think Thor is the last man standing.
Of course, yeah.
And I think Thor maybe kills some of the New Gods, but when you have Black Racer, who is the embodiment of death, I don't think that Kirby made the New Gods so cosmically powered that I think they obliterate the Asgardians without a second thought.
I also think when you look at the way their stories tend to be structured, the kind of ways that the characters operate, the New Gods, just because of when they came up and who they were created by, they operate on a more abstract level. That the Asgardians are pretty straightforward, your classic warriors, your Conan types a lot of the time.
Aliens with advanced technology.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that I think the New Gods are smarter, I just think they see the world in a more complex way than the Asgardians do.
I think they're beings on a higher level.
Yeah.
They
So I think,
really are.
I think even
and
if
they're also outside the multiverse if you go off that one.
That's true. So even if you want to swipe Darkseid away, I just think that they could out-tactic and out-maneuver the Asgardians, no problem.
So, all right, so let's move out of the fight aspect. Let's talk about just stories and cosmic. Let's talk about in that sense.
See, to me, that's a more interesting argument.
Let's go that way.
I think both camps have more bad stories than good.
Yeah, you're right.
Just to be completely honest, not to be crummy about it, just to be honest. They both have excellent showings around the time they were created. They've had sparse runs here and there, and they both have excellent runs in the modern era.
They do.
And I think maybe it's a matter of taste. I also think, and I'm going to bring this argument up a little bit later, I think you have to take sort of their larger pop culture impact into consideration, but Thor is very popular because Thor is in the MCU.
He's in a movie right now.
Thor has more movies. He's got a bigger presence. He's more of an influencer. So I think the Asgardians probably have more good story if we're just like doing columns. I think the Asgardians probably have more good stories than the New Gods.
Okay, so let's couch it. Let's start couching this out. Okay, what is the most popular Thor story? I mean, yeah, you're right. Jason Aaron is doing a hell of a job on Thor. He has been for the last 4 years. It's really good. At the same time, we have Tom King's Mr. Miracle, which won Eisner's last year and is critically lauded.
We have Jason Aaron also introduced the female Thor.
No, I counted that. In that
okay.
Yeah. But you could count that. Sure, count that separately. Yeah.
Whatever. We don't have to. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's also, I don't like this story, but it's very popular, is the teenage Loki and that journey into mystery stuff that happened at the beginning of Marvel now.
Okay,
was
so
very popular, and that's what brought him over into the Young Avengers.
So to counter that, I will give you the Green Lantern story Godhead.
Very good story.
Where the Green Lanterns fought the New Gods. Not critically appraised, but it sold well.
Popular, yeah.
Okay, so there's that one. Before that, I think you have to count Grant Morrison's JLA because Orion and Big Barda are part of the Justice League. The counter to that, I would say it's maybe the Thor run by Dan Jurgens in the 90s, which is probably Heroes Return Thor.
Also, there's only, at the time of this recording, there's only one issue out, but Cecile Castellucci's Female Furies came out and was a huge hit. The first issue is out if you want to put that. And then I think if you're going old, so they both have kind of 4 that we just named in the modern era.
Yeah, and I would say, like, if you go back to Jack Kirby's Fourth World stuff is...
You've got to go Louise Simonson... Walt Simonson's Thor.
Walt Simonson's
as well.
Thor. There's the counter there. There's some New Gods in the 90s. It's not great. There's some Thor stories in the 90s. They're not great. I don't know. It's an interesting.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting argument. I do lean towards you. I do think that through the lens of Thor, the Asgardians have so many better stories because the New Gods are very hard concepts to do because the New Gods were brought back in the 90s by John Byrne and Walter Simonson, and they did an Orion series, they did a Fourth World series, they did a bunch of stuff. The whole Genesis crossover is about the Fourth World, but they're not that great.
They're heady, like we were talking about with them operating as tacticians. It's a heady concept.
Yeah, but at the same time, you could say Thor was being drawn by Rob Liefeld in Heroes Reborn, and that's not great either.
How did we forget the arguably one of the only good books that came out of the New Age of Heroes, Bug the Forager? Forager is Forager, and he's in Young Justice right now, so he's quite popular as well.
That is a Fourth World series. That's great. That's a good pull. I think you're right, but I will say that the Asgardians are focused through one character.
Yes,
whereas
absolutely.
The New Gods, we have Forager, we have Bug that got his own series, we have Mr. Miracle got his own series with the Female Fury. Like, they're a world, but it is gods against gods. Man, I'll say this. I think the New Gods, as a concept, are better than Thor. Because the New Gods are original, they are created by Jack Kirby, and I think they tackle loftier goals than old mythology just being updated. I still think Thor has better stories. I think because...
I agree.
Kirby was sort of on to the psychedelic 70s wave of good and evil and all that stuff like that.
And you can tell he is working without very much editorial oversight. They're just letting him do his thing.
Sure. But I think that's part of the reason why Kirby's one of the few creators that is able to create a great New Gods run, whereas it's harder... I mean... There's very few Tom Kings out there to create, to do something new with the Fourth World. Whereas, Thor runs, Jason Aaron's been kicking ass on Thor for 5 years now. So he's got a pretty lengthy run. We have the Walter Simonson run, which is pretty good. I like the Dan Jurgens run.
You also like the Beta Ray Bill stuff?
That's Walter Simonson.
Which is, I know, but Beta Ray Bill is Thor adjacent. But,
and the J. Michael Straczynski run.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
And that gets really weird, which is why I wanted to touch on that.
And then you have to think about, if we're going to lump the Asgardians into all this, every Avengers story that Thor stars in could technically be considered an Asgardian story.
Well, we did consider the Justice League as well for the New Gods, but I think it's also worth discussing their overall cultural impact. And, and it does come down to probably movies.
Yes.
And I think the Asgardians take that easily because we don't have a New Gods movie.
Yes.
There are great.
It's being made at the time of this recording.
Theoretically, it's being made.
Yeah.
I hope it's being made. That'd be great. The New Gods though do have good showings in the DC animated series. And then if we're lumping in Darkseid appears a lot in the movies.
I'm gonna say this: New Gods have better costumes.
I will definitely agree with that.
New Gods have better costumes. There's, there's not many. Most of the Asgardians besides Thor look kind of dumb, whereas the Asgardians all have these Kirby designs that look so good. The New Gods, excuse me. Yeah. The New Gods all have these Kirby designs that look so good.
It's why their costumes haven't changed that much since they were created.
Mr. Miracle really has not changed since 1970. Orion has gotten like an updated jacket, but it's still basically the same look.
Oh, and Orion's great in the New 52 Wonder Woman when he shows up.
Yep. I have the New 52 Orion right there.
Yes, he does.
But I have a couple Thors up here as well.
I think what it comes down to, maybe at the end of the day,
I'm gonna do a quick, brief figurine. Continue your point. Go on.
It's a matter of taste, and it's a matter of what you want to read, and it's a matter of how much you want to be challenged. And it is interesting because the Asgardians are very much the old school camp, and the New Gods, and it's right there in the name, are like the new school camp of the same idea played up.
Okay, I just did a brief count. Even the shelf that is above this line up here, you guys can't see. On our set right now, there are 4 New Gods action figures. There are 3 Thor characters, and I'm including Loki in that. So just based on that, the New Gods win. Congrats, New Gods. Welcome. Thank you so much, Andrew Bosco, for the question. If you want to be like Andrew and know the secret spices of Kentucky Fried Chicken and have us answer a question, you need to go to patreon.com/Alwyn. There's a card that's coming up. There's a link down in the description. Go over there and do that. Go down to the comments. Tell us what you think. New Gods, Asgardians, who's better? We want to hear your thoughts. While you're down there, click subscribe.
And for more exclusive geeky content, do check out patreon.com/Jawin. Come join us in the Hall of Justice and be a super friend.